Welcome to Give a Shift, the podcast you want to be listening to for positive radical change. My name is Nancy Leeds Gribble, and I am one of your co-hosts.
And I'm your other co-host, Alicia Bidler.
Yay! And Alicia and I, we are on a mission to bring you stories of inspiration and information that will help you make the shifts you need to create the life that you want. So welcome everyone to today's episode. Yay! We are super excited to have the amazing, the beautiful, the talented Natalie Roy with us. Back again. Yay! We're all of the yays today because power here in Houston is on.
Yes, for our listeners, this is take 2 of last week's attempt. So Nancy was caught in a storm and it halted our entire podcast.
Yeah. You never know what you're getting here in Houston with the weather. It's a little psychotic. So before we dive in, I am going to share Natalie's bio with everyone. So get ready. Natalie Roy is an actress of stage and screen, a published author and acting mentor. She's performed and taught all over North America and recently hit viral success working with Ryan Reynolds and Maximum Effort, starring in a series of commercials for Match.com, which won a prestigious Webby Award and boasts over 6.6 million views and 4 billion impressions. Natalie has appeared on FBI, Blacklist, Blind Spot, The Affair, Law and Order, SVU, The Loudest Voice, The Detour, Power, The Following, Being Erica, Murdoch Mysteries, and in 2 films directed by award-winning director Sidney Furie and the upcoming feature Mooch. She also voices the English dubbing for the hit Netflix series The Innocent as the lead role. She authored her first book, 30 Years, 30 Lessons, several years ago, and has since collaborated on the I'm Possible project and the Create book, Let's Play. Natalie has over 500 hours as a certified yoga teacher and a meditation mindfulness guide specializing in visualization, positive psychology, and optimal mindset for actors and performers. Natalie co-founded Create with Tony-nominated director Kristen Hange and created the acting technique, the Activated Actor, with which she coaches many professional working actors in New York City. Woo! That's
She's
the
a
list,
mom,
Natalie.
she's a wife, she's like a best friend. I mean, she's got all the hats.
I'm like, now the episode's over. It took so long to read that.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us.
Good night.
We need you to walk the red carpet. We'll be right back.
I'm so happy to be here with you both. Thank you so much.
That is a beautiful list of things that you have started, things that you have created, the life you've created, and we are so excited to learn more about you today. So we'd love to turn it over to you and share your journey with us.
I'm so delighted. I love what you two have built, and I love your dynamic with each other. And I can only imagine that all of your listeners are as beautiful and captivating as you both are. And just kudos to you both for what you've created here. It's such a gift to everyone. And I know that, Michael Beckwith said this, and I've taken this to my heart. He says, the high tide rises all boats. And I really think that's what we're here to do. It's like, yeah, let's all rise together and share our stories. And hopefully it becomes inspiration for all of us. So I'm so grateful to be here and share a little piece of me with you and your listeners as well. And, I know that a lot of that bio really just makes me tired listening to that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I'm also a toddler mother, so I'm also tired for other reasons.
That'll do it.
That'll do it every time.
Is it a knock at the door? Someone dropping off espresso?
Totally. When's the coffee coming? But I will say that all of those things that you read and that you shared, those things for me are not really the inspirational things. I've never really imagined that, at my eulogy one day they're listing off my credits or my resume or anything. I hope that what they share is how my life, my love, my heart touched people and left a little piece of myself with others. So that's why it's such a gift to be asked to do this today. And so I will start really at the beginning. I was a little sprightly little girl growing up in the middle of nowhere in Canada. I think there was 800 people in our little community where I was growing up. And I went to one school until the 9th grade. And, I had this really like organic, natural, on the outskirts of life sort of life. But there was this thing inside of me that was a seeker, that was really this little curiosity light that was inside of me. And I wanted to know everything. My daughter now, who's almost 2, is at that age too. What's that? Mama, what's that? What's that?
Oh,
What's that? And it's very reminiscent of what my parents described me to be like as well, where every single thing about the world delighted me and I was curious about. And so all of that list of things that you just read about me really boils down to one thing, which is I just came to this earth with this deep, innate curiosity. And I wanted to try everything. And I wanted to put my hands in the mud. And I wanted to be a beauty queen. And I wanted to be an astronaut. And I wanted to do everything. So So I think
I became an actor.
I became an actor so I could do as many of those things as possible. But I do really feel that sometimes we all come in here and we're like, I don't know, everyone talks about purpose and like this kind of one driven thing. And I don't know what that is. And so if anyone listening is feeling that way, I want to say my driving force was to really sensorially experience everything I could.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to taste everything. I wanted to smell everything. I wanted to touch everything. I just wanted to be out there in the world and see what this beautiful world was and what it had to offer. So although my journey has led me mostly in the direction of the arts and the creative arts, I'm just interested in the whole darn thing. Like the more often I can travel, the better. The more often I can have an interesting conversation with someone, the better. All of those things. And I think that sometimes we limit ourselves when we think, what is the one thing I'm here to do? I hope that at least this can give permission to everyone to say, you just follow the next aligned action. And I think what an aligned action has always looked like for me is that creative spark that says, yeah, go there. I call it follow the charm, follow the thing that lights me up, that sort of feels beautiful. Like, oh, let's go over there. It looks cute over there. Let's do that. And that has led me to a series of relationships and heartbreak and wonderful things and hard things that has made this life thus far. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of how nonlinear it's been and how all over the place it's been. So it started off in Canada where I was just dreaming about creating and storytelling. And I loved to dance up and down the dirt road. And all the neighbors going by on the tractors thought I was this weird little thing, but I just loved storytelling and I loved singing. And I used to sing to myself in the mirror and just really like thought I was like something. And I still do. I still sing to myself in the mirror and still think I'm something in my shower.
I used to use my jump rope. I know.
You know, right? I'm trying out, Alicia. You and our kindred spirits. But my journey did lead me to really pursuing psychology and arts and creativity and writing and acting. And I was just so in love with all of those things that then I just wanted to do that as my vocation. I just wanted to spend my life being creative. And so that led me to pursuing acting full-time, as much full-time as I could. I also did lots of other fun things like waitressing and temp jobs and all those awesome things that you do. And it was like really like part of the mission for me. I'm like, I'm a real actor because I'm also a waitress. It's really good. Like I know I'm really doing the thing as I think it looks like. And that actually was how I came to meet Alicia. And I'm so excited that we met this way, is that I got this really fancy audition and I got to fly to New York for the audition. It was a screen test and I'd never done one before. And I was in like my early to mid 20s at the time. I can't remember, Alicia, but it was a long time ago.
I was like, we could do the math, but
we're going to skip over the math today.
Few moons ago.
I'm sure that audition, though, is somewhere archived in my email if you really want to know.
Oh my gosh. It's when you say in the bio, a few years ago, she wrote this book about being 30. I'm like, man, I got to update that bio.
It's a great book, by the way. Everybody should read
Oh my
it.
gosh, I love it. And so, I show up at this place and I've never done this before and I'm so excited. I mean, the whole plane ride there, I'm like, I have made it. Someone bought me a plane ticket. Like I have, like, life can end. Like I have done the thing. This is so cool. And I just remember like walking on the plane feeling like I'm really somebody, whatever that means. But whatever you think it means when you're in your 20s, it's so sweet. That's part of the charm of aging, is that, what we find charming just changes. And so I showed up and Alicia was sitting there with all these other very beautiful women. And I was like, wow, they're like real actresses. They look so cool. Like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And, then we were there for several hours. And at some point, Alicia kind of looked at me with this very loving maternal energy. And she's like, here's a snack. Here's some water. I can tell you haven't done this before. We're going to be here a minute. Here's how it's going to go. And I just like absorbed her like a sponge. I was like, oh my gosh, the generosity of how much she took care of me in that moment. Because as human beings, but also very much as actors, we are really trained on separation and we are really trained to not be for each other. We are really trained to be like, I'm over here and you're over here. And if you get something, that means I get less. And so just the fact that she was so nurturing, and even though we were going against each other, quote unquote, for the same role, the best thing I got out of it was the friendship.
Absolutely.
Beautiful soul. It's kind of like I was never meant to get the role, but I was totally meant to meet Alicia, and it totally changed my life meeting her.
I think we even ran lines together. I mean, they're actors. We ran lines together and we were like, our choices. Let's just get it out.
So much fun and so much community. And then like after the audition, we're like, let's go hang out in New York together and be best friends. Like it was such a wonderful thing. And, years later, I had gone back to Toronto and I was, doing the thing. I was waitressing at this restaurant and I was having a very hard time because what I find for myself is that when I'm really in like the flow of my own creativity, then it's like the doors just kind of open and life feels really fun. And it feels like there's a communication with life that happens. And sometimes all the doors seem like they're just closing. And I feel like I'm just so isolated and alone and there's nobody talking to me. Like there's no universe that's talking back to me. And I'm like, hello, is anyone there? And I have these dreams and why is it getting so sticky? And why is everything so hard? And I was really in that place. And I'll never forget, I was standing at the bar, like pouring a glass of water for a table and holding the glass in my hand. And the glass literally exploded in my hand. And in that moment, I was just looking at the glass on the floor and I really was thinking to myself, oh, this is the moment that I have to do a brave thing. I have to do something different. It's not working the way it's worked thus far. And this is the sign, like you have to let the glass ceiling shatter sometimes to get somewhere else. And what I often have felt in my own experience is that the sort of foundation that I stand on is my own standards. And when I drop my own standards, then the ceiling of my own experiences gets smaller. So it's not sort of asking the world to do something for me, but it's saying to myself, I have to raise my own standard of what's possible for me and how I'm living my life and how I'm treating myself, how I'm loving myself, how I'm feeding myself. And I have to raise that standard for myself so that glass ceiling gets higher for me. And what that translated into was quitting my job and moving to Los Angeles, which is actually a really wonderful thing because I didn't know anyone in Los Angeles except for Alicia. And I remember like looking and I'm like trying to find a place and trying to find a car. And how do you just pick up your life and move somewhere? Because I didn't want to move forever because I didn't have the paperwork to do so. But I was like, I know I feel called to do it. I know I feel called. If nothing less, I'm going to go and sit in the sunshine and think about things in a different way and just try to just shake things up so I can really see what life is asking for me. And I didn't know, and everything was again not kind of working out. So I thought to myself, okay, this is me really in the energy of like pushing and forcing. And what would it look like instead to really be in the energy of like drawing to me what I want and what would feel good? So I went on, I think it was Craigslist at the time or something, and I wrote an ad saying, I'm coming to LA. I'm coming for this much time. this is who I want to live with. This is what I want it to look like. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And this wonderful woman found me and said, well, I have a 2-bedroom apartment. You can come live with me. And it was so miraculous for me of like, oh, when I'm out there looking and I can't find exactly the right thing, but then I forget to put in the order of like, actually, this is what I would like to have. I wonder if that's available. So it all started off on this beautiful foot. And then I got to LA, and the first thing that happened is I got pulled over for driving too slow on the freeway. And I'm like, well, this isn't going well. And I was scared. I'm in my car, I'm crying, and I'm terrified. And this is all a big mistake. And I don't know what to do. And well, why have I blown up my life? And this was all a big mistake. And I was wandering around Burbank. Like I didn't know where anything was. And I stumbled upon a yoga studio, and I'd actually never done yoga before. I'd heard of it, and I thought it was like a cool thing that cool people did. So maybe I should go in and check it out. And I remember going into this class, and I rented a yoga mat, and I sat on the floor, and the teacher started going through all the poses. And I just sat on that mat and I cried, and I couldn't stop crying. And so I laid on the mat and I cried. And then at the end of the class, the teacher came up to me and she said, you did such a great job doing yoga today. And I thought to myself, I don't know what that means. And she said, that's what yoga is. It's just connecting with yourself wherever you're at, whatever it looks like in that moment. You did that. So congratulations. So whoever this woman was, I was like, I don't know who you are, and she's like, well, this is my place. I own this place. And I saw a sign that said they were doing yoga teacher training, and I signed up. And she's like, but you want to be a yoga teacher? I'm like, I don't know. But whatever this thing that just happened on the mat feels really important. So maybe yes, maybe I'll just say yes. Why not? Everything else that I've been putting energy into feels like a no. So let me just say yes to this. And then that really led me down this beautiful trajectory of the more I absorbed myself in those Eastern traditions and the meditation traditions and the visualization techniques and those practices, I just kept getting lit on fire of like, I wish every actor, every writer, every performer knew these things, because we're all going about it from this really force-based reality. And if only we could all know that there's different ways that we could go about this. There's more heart open ways that we could go about this. So immediately I'm like packing it up and I'm going back to Toronto, and I'm going to, bring it back, bring all the tools back. And so that was really like what started me down this path of, starting what is now my company about activated acting, and this sort of feeling of letting some spark from inside of you come out and speak for you and speak through you, instead of always looking at the world to give you what you think you want, and always trying to move the furniture in your life to try to make things better. I just found that in my own life and in my own self, I was just moving from problem to problem to problem, and I would get really good at being a great problem solver. But then I would get to the end of days or weeks or years and think, all I've really done is move the pieces around, but I still fundamentally feel the same sadness or the same loneliness or the same lack of fulfillment. So I thought, oh, there must be something different. And that was what really started to unlock in me. And then, of course, once I made those internal shifts, all of the doors that I thought were closed started really opening again, and opening in a different way, where different collaborators were called to me. And I was getting offers for different kinds of jobs and different, literally even a different husband. I found a new husband.
I know that story.
And I will never forget, this whole thing was taking me on this journey, which of course led to my first marriage dissolving, even though he was such a wonderful partner and a wonderful person. I have so much respect and love for him still, but clearly just the path started going in a different way. And I was I was in Paris, and I chopped all my hair off and I came home, and he was like, I don't recognize you. And I was like, I know, but I do. And I really knew in that moment that I was finally embodying this person that little girl dancing down the street with the tractors knew that I was here to be, but I just had to find my way to get back to her. So then years later, I had gone through my divorce, and I had gone through, it's a lot of healing. And my best friend said, what do you want to do now? I said, well, I want to go back to Paris, because it was 3 years prior we had gone there together, and I had this kind of awakening and this opening. And so we went back to Paris and we were waiting to check into our Airbnb and we couldn't check in yet. And she said, where do you want to go? I said, let's go back to that same restaurant we went to on our first trip to Paris. And it was like all the way across town. We had to take so many metros to get there, but we found it. And I am pulling up to the restaurant with my luggage and out walked my husband. And I took one look at him and I said, that's my husband. And now he is. But it was really like the opening and the availability to get so clear about what I was here for and what I was about and what I wanted to offer the world and what I wanted my legacy to be, that it was like when the things started showing up that were really for me, like I couldn't miss them. And it really reminded, I think all the time about that day with that broken glass in my hand, of feeling like I was just wearing a shoe that was a little bit too tight, or feeling like I was living the life that was the life someone else maybe wanted me to live, or someone else thought, or that's how it's supposed to look. But it didn't feel like it was supposed to feel, even though it all looked really good.
Right.
And then the life that I got to sort of create ultimately through the mess and the broken glass, broken glass, broken marriage, broken all the things. But from sort of creating a new mosaic with those pieces, it really became this beautiful life that I have now. And now I also get the gift of being a mom. And although I'm exhausted and it's very tiring, the gift of her and getting to now see in her and in her eyes that same little girl that was dancing up the street with the tractors. Like, here she is again in a little version of me. And now I get to sort of spend my life creating a space for her to go, yeah, keep dancing, keep exploring. Like that curiosity. Yes, I'll answer that question all the time. So that hopefully what we do as we evolve, as we pass the evolutionary torch on and on and on. And I don't think we only do that through children. I think as an artist, I certainly feel like I do that with the roles that I play, and also with just the friendships that we have. Certainly Alicia and I, when we met, she really passed an evolutionary torch to me that I'm still years later so grateful for. And I just feel like that's what we're here to do. We take it as far as we can and then we pass it along.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel that's what you are both creating with this podcast as well. It's just this opportunity to just pass a little piece of wisdom or pass a little piece of experience, or as one of my favorite teachers says, the best teacher for you is not the one who's up on the mountaintop who has it all figured out, but the person who's walking just one step ahead of you and trips on the rock and says, hey, watch that rock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we didn't even talk about the fact that she was like podcasting before podcasting was a thing. I listen to it every time I listen to Natalie's podcast. I'm like, oh, we're twins. Oh yeah, we're twins. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we have yeah.
And then I send it to Nancy. I'm like, Nancy, you gotta hear this.
little secret. We were eyeballing your podcast cover, going, that's what we want. That.
I mean, and then that's the thing, right? Because I know that Natalie she's an igniter. Like that's when I think of her. That's what I think. I'm like, she's the person that you ask, like, should I do this thing? She's like, do the damn thing. And if it doesn't work out, at least you tried it. Or right. Should I do this? Just do it. Because the curiosity is going to, in one way or another, tell you, yes, that shoe's going to fit Cinderella. Or no, look, we got to get back out in the woods and go find it, right? Like you got to just do the thing. And I think that's kind of where on this podcast, we really want to encourage people, like that shift is important. Because you don't know. Like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I think I'm done. And then I get something and I get curious again. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just an artist and this is a moment. And this is where it feels like it's at a standstill. Because it's not in me to give up on it. So I know that's not the shift. But maybe what I'm doing in my daily cycle is getting redundant. And I'm bored and it's not working. So what would be fun? Like to sit, and I think the thing that we miss that you've taught me through your podcast is it's okay to sit and just be and listen. So now I'm like, I'm going to go for a walk with no music and no phone. And I'm just going to exist in the space and the world and see what download I get. And if I don't get a download today, maybe it'll be tomorrow, or maybe it'll be when I'm doing the dishes. But I think that there's a lot of pressure right now. It feels like in the world, or like, yes, what's my purpose? And it's not working. And what do I do about it? And how do and it's kind of like, sometimes it's okay to just like breathe and be like. Yesterday I was like, I'm gonna have a full-on meltdown because I feel like I haven't cried in so long that it's like turning into anxiety, and I just gotta like unleash the the top. And now I woke up today, I'm like, good morning. Look at the birds. I'm gonna work out. Let's do a podcast. And it's amazing. But I feel like sometimes I have to listen to something like your podcast or ours, where I go, okay, we're just humans. And it's not easy. And we're trying to like cohabitate and thrive. And God forbid it doesn't feel good just a little bit. And then we panic. And I think finding that footing is kind of where we are right now, which is like, how do we encourage individuals to follow their charm, follow their bliss, like give themselves that permission?
Yeah, I think we're really, really, really obsessed with it has to feel good and it has to feel good all the time. And I just know for myself that that's really irrelevant. That, it's like there's so many days where I just throw the tantrum and lay on the floor and feel the things. Or, I mean, I am the girl who goes to Central Park and hugs a tree and cries in it. People can walk by and think what they think, but I do think that the most attractive energy in the world, when we talk about like what we can draw towards us, the most attractive energy is authenticity. It's not making it all look good. I think we're obsessed with making it look good at the detriment of our own heart and our own experience. And I really, really think the gift of being the human being is the glass breaks, you step on it, you mess it up, you cry, you laugh, you meet a friend, it feels wonderful. You meet another friend, it doesn't feel wonderful. And you're just having all of this plethora of experience because we're sentient beings. We're here to feel. And we've just taken off the table that rage and sadness and grief and loneliness are also really important, vital things to feel. And it doesn't mean you've done something wrong. I always feel like when those emotions are coming up, I've really done something right, because it means my nervous system is now in such a place of safety that it feels safe with me to feel and allow those things, which tells me I'm doing a great job.
Yep.
I love that. I love that mindset shift on, first of all, you are a storyteller. I was completely captivated. I'm like, well, it's story hour and I'm here for the listening. I was riveted for the whole thing. And I love the way it all flowed. Just a few take backs. The first thing, when you were talking about your toddler, I was sort of thinking, gosh, if we could all go back to that toddler state a little bit, right? With three things, like stay curious. Toddlers are always curious, always. Don't take no for an answer, right? They never take no for an answer. Like you could say it a million times and then know when to say no, because toddlers, when they put their foot down, they put it down. And you're like, how can such a tiny little thing do it? And so when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, three toddler takeaways. But I love too, like when you went to the yoga studio, you didn't put all this judgment around, should I be a yoga teacher? Should I not be a yoga teacher? What am I going to do with being a yoga teacher? You were just like, this feels good. Something feels right with it. And I'm just going to do it. And I think so many times we do things thinking we have to have this ultimate outcome for what's going to happen. Like, oh my gosh, if I take this training, am I now going to be, this person is an instructor, or am I going to do this? Maybe just take it for the experience. If something comes out of it, fantastic. But if not, guess what? You just stepped into your life a little bit more by doing something that felt good. That was the other thing. And the third, so many things, but the ones that popped was the push pull that you were saying. So many times we're forcing, and we need to have a little of that, right? Like we need to have a little bit, but when it's the day to day and you feel like you're just forcing what's going to happen and you're waiting and you do something and you're waiting, it's exhausting. That energy is the most draining. So the courage and the strength to let it be, and
Yeah.
just kind of what you said, shatter the glass ceiling, but let the glass break, let it be, is really hard, but so necessary. This is a silly example, but I'm just going to say it. Alicia and I, we struggle with social media. The struggle is real.
Same.
But
Same.
the world is constantly like, you need to put out more. You need to do more, do more, do more. And I think for me, it almost makes me go, I just can't. I didn't grow up with it in my face. And it's so hard. But then when I'm like, I'm going to take this really a big step back, I get this little panic. Like, what if they're right? What if they're right? Instead of just going, let's just see what happens. This podcast with Alicia and the amazing guests we have on is truly the highlight of my week. I'm like, it brings me the most energy, the most joy. So I'm like, what if we could just do more of these? But what you said is so true. Like, it's hard, and you have to kind of sometimes just step back and see what you're feeling. Are you pushing? Are you pulling? Are you being attracted? Are you like, what is that? And I think that's the thing. We don't stop and allow those feelings, and we don't name them and kind of give them the credit, like, okay, this is what I'm feeling and it's okay. Now, what am I going to do with it? So, such great points. You were telling your story, all these nuggets that were inside of it. And, going back to Paris, and then you met your husband, you were doing something that you felt aligned to go do, and then other things lined up. But it's very hard for people. It's hard for me sometimes to give myself that space. I said there was 3, there's 4. The other thing I was thinking was the doing, and we are being. We need to like stop being humans doing and go back to being human beings, to feel what we're feeling, to explore, to adventure, and to just take in the sensory of life. I think of that when I'm out on a walk or I'm in nature, but I don't think of it I don't think of it when I'm just somewhere else. And I'm like, why don't I think of it like that? Like, I think I have to be in nature to experience all the sensory stuff that I love. But anyway.
Instead of in your closet, that's fine too.
Instead of my closet, I don't have any sense.
Exactly. We'll have right and left and left and right and backwards and forward. I mean, all the time. But I think it's that, like I said, that permission of expression. But I think if anybody is going to answer your question, Nancy, it is Natalie.
Yeah.
He's so well versed in that direction. So
yeah, I think that we have a lot of training around doing and extrinsic goal making, which is, I will do this for a certain return on investment, right? And I think we actually do this with our relationships too, to the detriment of our true connection, is that everything becomes a transaction. It's like, I do this, so I get this. Or if I do this, what do but everything becomes about this external reaction to what we're offering. Yeah. And I really, for myself, feel so much gratitude when I know that everything that I'm creating is just for my own little heart to experience it. It doesn't matter what the audience thinks. It doesn't matter if you like what I have to say or not, even though there's a part of all of us where it matters so deeply, right? But if we can just really be in the receptivity of our own experience, that I think we are often walking around the world saying, I'd like to receive more, but I'm not receptive to my own self. And so I'm sort of training myself to shut down and block the receptivity. And I know there's really clear examples of this. Like, how many times when someone gives you a compliment, do you find yourself going, oh, this old thing, or, and we deflect it. Or even sometimes someone will try to give you money and you're like, no, it's okay. Right. And we're really in this training almost of deflecting receptivity. And I truly believe that receptivity is where all the inspirations come, right? Like, the next thing to do, whether it's, go take a yoga class or go to Paris and meet a husband, or, have a baby or not, or, adopt an animal or go for a walk or go on that side of the street, that receptivity is available to us all the time. We have pre-conscious receptivity, we have conscious receptivity, and we have profound receptivity from that which is greater than us. And all of those centers of receptivity get blocked by being the doer, by being the person who has to have the answer and the person who's addicted to controlling the outcome, right? And so all of those things are sort of the things that keep us out of. It's almost like I place the order and then I leave. So the order might show up, but I'm not there to receive it because I'm like, well, I can't just wait here. I got to go out and do something. And so there's a building of something that is really important in this sort of personal receptivity of saying, this experience is for my eyes. This thing that if I'm going to go be a yoga teacher, it's so that I get the experience of being in the room and moving my body in that way. And there's nothing more that comes out of it than my own experience of myself in my own body. And I like to think about it as there's a part of me that is this forever part. It's the same little eyes when I was 2 are looking at you, and in my age now, that it's the same little being, it's the same essence, the same consciousness, even though everything about me has changed. Like this body is changing and is only here for a small amount of time, but there's another part of me that's here, this consciousness that's eternal. So this eternal consciousness is involuting in my body to have an experience. Like my soul wants to experience all the things that it is to be a human being. But I'm robbing my soul of that experience by saying, but it's only worth doing if it gets somewhere. It's only worth doing if it makes money. It's only worth doing if people like it.
Likes and posts. And that's, I think and I can hear you so clearly on that, because I was like, wow, I look back to my Instagram and I went all the way to the beginning, those archaic photos that you're like, oh my gosh, I once put these out there. And I was like, wow, I had joy. Like my first picture was like, this is my plant on my own front porch. And I was so excited about life. And then I saw the transition of, I could tell when it became, and I'm only using Instagram because I feel like it's a very tangible topic, but I could see where I was like, oh, this is where business started to happen on Instagram. This is where what you put out there started to like or dislike or get comments. This is where you took a break because obviously it was getting too intense. This is where it felt competitive. And then it just stopped. And I was like, well, I guess I'll just do a couple stories every once in a while because I don't know if I can keep up and I'm exhausted and it doesn't look like anyone really cares what I post anyway. But to me, it's like, well, if I post that glass of orange juice and it brought me so much joy, I just want to show you how cute the table is, the glasses, the color, but we don't. And then you're like, forget it. Nobody cares. Mm-hmm. But you're totally right, Natalie, because to me, it matters. And that self-expression, that should be my artist wall. That should be my gallery of, it doesn't matter who likes or dislikes, how many times I'm going to post Izzy this week, my new adopted baby. I literally did the same thing. I was like, well, I'm not going to put her up there every day, even though she's like grown tenfold in a week. She's in a bag. She's in the car. She's outside. But I thought, nobody cares. But that's exactly right. It's robbing me joy of being like, well, this is what I want to say about it or share and ultimately what I think it boils down to is it creates a disconnect because it really does. It only took me giving you one snack to say, hey kid, you're in this. Yeah. This is what you're going to do from this moment on. Every audition you go to, you take a snack and you take water because you never know how long you're going to be there. If we post, it could affect one person and change their life. But it's remembering to do that and say, hey, if it brings me joy, it just might bring someone else that spark, that, what if that's the thing that causes them to shift? We don't even know, right? But we've stopped kind of doing that. And that's me. I'll speak for me, not everybody, but I'll speak for myself. And I really did. I just halted. I just let it be a burden. Yeah. It no longer was fun. And I was like, wow, well, if everybody's just going to be so competitive on here and this is what it's about, and got totally into the dark side, how do you bring yourself back to that light? I'm sure you work with it and artists on stage all the time when I'm not doing it right. I'm not making anybody happy. It's taking too long. The producers are pissed. You have to probably do a huge cheerleading talk too on top of coaching.
Well, this is what it all comes down to. It all comes down to, is it playful? Is it fun? Because when I'm trying to find the needle in the haystack, I'm trying to control it. I'm trying to get it right. I'm trying to be what I think someone else wants me to be. I'm going to look for that needle in the haystack forever. If I go roll around in the hay, it's going to hit me. You know what I mean? It's about the joy. It's about the joy of the experience. And personally, for me, my Instagram is a love letter to 5-year-old myself, where 5-year-old me is looking at my Instagram going, you have an apartment that you live in?
In New York, you go, girl.
Like 5-year-old me is like, there's more than one room? Like, you own that too? You have a headshot? Those things they said about you, that's you?
Yeah.
Like 5-year-old me thinks I am the coolest person in the world. And they can't believe that they got to grow up and be me. They can't believe it. Now, me today, I'm like, well, I've only done this and I've only done this, and this credit was kind of small, and da, 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 da. That's why that person is not allowed to run my Instagram, because that person is a Debbie Downer. And I don't need that person to run my Instagram. I don't need that person to run my business. I don't need that person to do my podcast. I don't need that person to do my auditions. That is a part of me that I can give some love to, because it's clearly an insecure part. So it needs love. It doesn't need to be banished. But the 5-year-old in me who is so in love with everything that I'm doing, that's who I post for. And then as I'm sort of saying to that little piece of me, hey, look what we get to do today. Look what we get to experience today. Look who we get to talk to today. Oh, look how fun this is. Oh, look what this gets to be. Simultaneously, I can feel my future self looking at me going, thanks, Natalie. Thanks for taking that action step today. Thank you for eating broccoli today. That was a really good decision for us. Like, thank you for taking such good care of my body today. Thank you so much for listening to your intuition today. And so simultaneously, I'm not having a relationship with an audience. I'm having a relationship with my full authentic self, past, future, and present. And hopefully in doing that, the thing that people I hope will see about me is, oh my God, she's just a mess and a love and a joy and all over the place, just like me. Oh, right. That's all of us. We're just trying to figure it out and no one knows what they're doing. Oh, cool. So her version of this is just try to have fun while you're doing it. Okay, cool.
I like that version. Oh my gosh, this is so great. I had, after my husband passed away and some things I wore for 1 year, it was a temporary tattoo because I was nervous, but I had it right here, and it was remember to play, because I had gotten so down, and then life was so hard and so serious that like all the joy was gone. And I was like, I needed a reminder, and it was like, and that I just put it there because I'm like, oh yeah, you're supposed to do something fun every once in a while. Now I am like the consummate seeker of play. I'm like, I need to play. I need to play. I'm not playing, not fun. But oh my gosh, I love you. I'm ready for your course, but I'm not an actress. But maybe podcast people count. I don't know.
She'll be like, Alicia, you take it and then tell me all the things.
Yeah. Natalie, share with us. I would love to hear the book that you have, and the create and the activated actor. Like, how did these come about, and who were they for?
Oh my gosh.
What tips can you tell people?
I love it. Well, the book, my first book, 30 Years, 30 Lessons, which I wrote when I turned 30, the whole actual premise of that book is I had gotten to the point where in my career where I had moved to New York City, but I was really waiting for my green card to be processed, and it was taking way longer than I thought. And I was in this holding pattern where I was watching everyone else live the life I wished I was living. And I felt stuck, and I felt like I couldn't go to auditions, and I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. And I felt so sad because I was in the place I most wanted to do it. So I felt both inside and on the outside looking in. And I knew that I could channel and move that sadness if I did something creative for myself. Again, not for anyone else, for myself. So I started writing down in the last 30 years, what do I feel like are the things that I've picked up that are most sacred to me? And I ended up, as I was writing, they ended up being like these 30 things. And so I wrote them as chapters, and then that became the book. And I had big intentions of writing 40 years for 40 lessons. And then at 40, I got pregnant and I was tired. So I was like, what I birthed that year was a human. So
like 40, here's my lesson. More than you can.
yeah.
Period.
But maybe there'll be a 50 in the future. I don't know. Yeah. And then from that, I ended up getting to collaborate on the I'm Possible project, which is a book that's written by several authors, and each of us did one chapter really very, very aligned with what you guys are offering, which is like, what's a shift moment in your life? And that was how that project came to be. And a lot of this idea of following the charm ended up leading me to all these different things, where I've not ever lived a life where I've created one thing or one type of thing. I've created lots of different things all over the place. And then that led me, in terms of taking these Eastern tools I was talking about and these holistic tools, and really deeply studying like the quantum world and quantum physics and how that relates to the nervous system and how that relates to being in this body and how that relates to the creative process and positive psychology and visualization techniques. And I was like, oh, I'm taking all these things from all these different places and sort of distilling it into a process for people who are creatives and specifically for people who act, and how to sort of bring that into their work as actors. So I have several courses now. My main course is the Activated Actor course, but I have, several courses. Leisha, I have one especially for you. It's called the Leading Lady Blueprint. It's got your name all over it. It's got your name all over it.
I'll do this one.
And so I spend my life really, yeah. You can take it too. They're follow the charm, my friend. But so it's led to this beautiful, beautiful life where I do feel like if I could distill what my curiosity has taught me about myself, it's that I'm a girl who's devoted. I'm utterly devoted. I'm devoted to the people in my life. I'm devoted to creativity. I'm devoted to being alive. I'm devoted to living a life where I'm really, really living it and I have no regrets. And so that devotion really translates for me into teaching. And so the podcast has been born out of that. And the courses that I teach is born out of that, where it's beautiful when I do it for myself and it's life-changing when I do it with other people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And the podcast, your podcast name is?
Yes. So our podcast is Let's Play the Create podcast. It's the acronym C.R.E.A.T.E. And it was really fun. This is very, very similar to you lovely ladies. This was my best friend and I having these conversations for years, these conversations about spirituality and art and what it is to be a human being and what it is to be a creative being on the planet and what's our freaking purpose and what are we doing here and all those questions. And we were having these conversations, and way back in 2016, I think we were teaching live classes, and our people said to us, why don't you do a podcast? We were like, what's a podcast? Never heard of it. And so it started from that, where it's really just been, and we used to like plan and take notes and do all these things. And now it's really like showing up and saying, what's going on in your life? What's going on in your life? And we have a conversation about it. And it's been a beautiful thing for our community. So if anyone is interested in that, you can check out the Create podcast.
Definitely listen, because her partner is going to be on in about 2 weeks.
Oh, yay! Yeah.
On, and she is just, what a light too. And she's so fun because she's so opposite of Natalie and I, because I look at Natalie and I like mirrored sisters. And then and I'm like, I'm so envious of your ginormous spirit. It's like she reminds me of that Care Bear that walks in the room and then like the rainbow bursts out of the chest, and it's like
she's totally a Care Bear. That is what she's like, a light bright unicorn Care Bear. Not a real person. I don't know who she is or how I found her, but she's so grateful.
Phenomenal. But the podcast is so the podcast definitely inspired me. I know too, when Nancy had said it, I was like, yes, because I know people that do it and they make it work and they look like they're having fun, and I need fun because I was not having, I'm still like that. Did you see that lie almost spit out? Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, Natalie's
Good
watching.
catch. Good catch, though.
I'll work on it starting today. But no, I think that was the thing, is that it really is. If we could really have a takeaway today, I think that we've done so many kind of serious, and even though Natalie brings so much depth to everything, like every single podcast, by the way, is like a jaw-dropping aha moment, one of those like, oh my God, tickly goosebumps, sobbing. Oh my God, me too. I should read that book. How come I haven't heard about it? Like I'm not writing, like all the things. But I think most of it is just really coexisting with like yourself and goodness and having fun with your friend, and how do you influence the people around you in the best way possible, right? Not like do what I do, but in, hey, psst, I see you. Are you doing the thing that makes you happy? Because if you're not, guess what? You totally can. Like, here's your golden ticket. Go to the chocolate factory and run through like a crazy person. And like, you know what I mean? I think that's kind of what I listen to. It's such a library of everything. Oh, and the story and how she meets Eddie is phenomenal. Like, that is worth, I think it's over an hour, and it is so good.
A whole podcast from that.
Didn't even have a passport and was like hardly traveling. Like, this is, it went from the girl who was like, I do live in my one room, to
Yes.
I'm going across the seas to get my honey. So everything in the podcast is just is a variety of topics. So I think it's really fun.
I can't wait. I have to be honest. I hadn't really been a podcast listener until we started our podcast. And then I'm like, when do I listen to all these podcasts? And it's taken me a year to figure out I put AirPods in while I'm working out. That is when I listen to podcasts. Because I'm like, if I just was playing the computer, I'm like, I can't hear what they're saying because I work out from home. It literally took me that long to figure it out. Now I'm like podcast obsessed. And now I know who's going top of the list. I can't wait. And I love that you said we just were having these conversations. That was something, people will say, well, what's your podcast about? What's the premise? What's the flow? And I go, the flow is a conversation. It's so organic, and we don't know what you're going to say. We don't want to know what you're going to say, because then our reaction is going to be real.
Yes.
Right.
I want to empower everyone. Like, I know, like, I'm talking a lot about creativity and being an actor because that just happens to be, where I've fallen with this. But really, when it comes to following the charm, it's there in you for a reason.
Yeah.
Life is asking for itself through that desire. And we live in this world where we, most of the time, have the impulse and then talk ourselves out of the action because there's already someone doing it, and why me, and it's saturated, and who would want to listen to me, and we haven't fully received the idea and we're already kicking it out.
That's so true.
It feels like what we do with our dreams is the same thing we do when we're on a dating app for too long, where it's like swipe, 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 and you're missing the gold, and the gold is always what I find in my experience. And I love, Alicia, how you reflected Kristen and I, because usually Kristen is the light beam one and I'm the one like in the depth crying on the floor. You know what I mean? Like I come to the joy from a place of knowing deeply its opposite. So I'm not if I'm speaking into someone at this moment who's really experiencing a lot of pain and they're feeling, well, that doesn't feel on the table for me because I'm in so much pain. I'm in so much grief. I feel so disconnected. I feel so lost. I just want to say every single charm I've ever followed has come from the place of thinking I wasn't going to be able to get off the floor. Yeah. It doesn't, for me, naturally, in the same way with my beautiful friend Kristen, it doesn't live in the rainbows for me the way it does for her. I've always admired that in her. And for me, it just comes through a different channel. And so I think it's just our job to not judge any of it. If you get that little impulse, just see it as like a little present, a little Amazon box just showed up, and just open it. Just open it.
I ordered something,
right? I forgot. Even if Kristen and I love to say this, like, how is not your job? How is not your job? The only thing that you have to get interested in is the why. And a sacred why will take you all the way through the hardest times and all the way through the biggest self-doubts. And if the sacred why for you is nothing more than I've got one precious life and I just want to see what happens if I try this, that why is so profound and sacred. And living that why will give permission to everyone you meet in a ripple that you have no idea how big it could be. So don't second guess it. Don't think it's too saturated. Don't think people don't need what you have to say. If you've been given the impulse, that is someone out there in the universe has asked for exactly what you need, exactly the way you can offer it. And I would encourage every single one of us, whether it's you guys with what you both create and what you do, or anyone listening, just follow it. Just follow it one little baby step. You don't even have to know how to do it. I remember Alicia saying, I think we want to start a podcast. How did you guys do it? And one little email, I'm like, well, ours is really not fancy. We just do this, this, and that. And I'm sure that even gave you permission for like, oh, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be this big thing. No, of course, you can literally just have a conversation with someone and press record. It can be really simple. I think we, especially in our social media life, we compare someone else's finished product to our little scratches of the beginnings of something. And then we immediately think it's not worthy and it's not relevant and it's not important. If you've been given the impulse, it's needed and it's important and someone's already asked for it. So just trust it.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Oh my God, that's like the best wrap up I think ever.
I was going to make a joke and say though on the actor front for that, that's like saying, oh, I'm not going to go to this audition because Meryl Streep's already done it. It's like, well, guess what? Meryl Streep is not available today because she's busy, so you need to go do it. Like,
totally.
Right? Like it really is just that.
Yeah,
it is just that. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Natalie.
Natalie,
we're gonna already have to book you again.
Come back.
I'll come back anytime. I love you both. This is so special what you've created.
Oh my God, you are truly a really light and breath of just fresh air and joy, and just kind of the thing taking. I don't know, the things that we think and saying, yes, go with it. Like, run with it, experience your own life. And Alicia, I really loved what you added with coexist with your own self. Like sometimes we don't do that, right? We're so busy doing and pleasing and we're like, oh my God, I got to do this, I got to do that. And we forget what we want. We forget our why. And just a beautiful podcast today. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Weather.
Thank you, Natalie.
Natalie, where can people find you? Because they must find you. We know on the podcast, but where else? Everybody needs a Natalie.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody needs the Natalie.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Natalie Roy.
Please come find me. Probably the easiest way, if you are like, I really like want to know more from you or want to know more about who you are, what you're up to. There's two easy ways. You can go to my website, natalieroy.com, or you can email me. I can give you my email. It's my name, Natalie Lynn Roy @gmail.com. Lynn is Lynn. So you can email me or you can check out my website and send me a personal message on my website and I will get to it. And through that, whatever you're interested in, if you're interested in the podcast, if you're interested in classes, I can direct you, towards the page for the podcast, or I can direct you towards classes I'm teaching, or I can direct you towards Kristen and I in our podcast do have a Facebook page, the Create Community Facebook page. So I can sort of direct you, or if you're an actor and you want the actor Facebook page, I can sort of direct you to where your desire is. There's lots of
too, right?
Lots of places to meet me. Yes, my books, everything's on the website, and also on Instagram. I'm MISS Natalie Roy, and you can also just send me a DM or send me a message there, and I will check in on you and lead you where you want to be.
To the stars.
To the stars.
Yes. We'll put those links when we do the show notes. We'll make sure we put all of that in there. And final thoughts, Alicia?
She's just my wow factor and I love her. And I'm like, she's my friend. And I'm like, pinch myself. I know her. And she's
pinch myself because I got to meet you. And
my anchor and my inspiration. I feel seen when I'm like, thank you for being so honest on your podcast and sharing, because I always go, yes, I've had that moment. And then the next one I go, oh, and there's me too. And it's just nice to, align with that. So thank you for being here and thank you for sharing. And we barely scratched the surface, y'all. So she is coming back. We're going to have a Natalie part 2.
Yes, we'll definitely have a Natalie part 2. And as we were all talking, this is our homegrown kind of podcast. So we don't have an editor. It all goes as it is. So we do want to thank everyone for listening. The only thing we ask, if you liked our podcast, please subscribe, please like it, share it, because we truly believe we are bringing amazing people that really help other people make the shifts they need in their lives. And the more stories we can hear, the more we realize what's possible, right, in our own world. So please like, subscribe, share. Thank you. All right, everyone, have an amazing day.
Did it!